When you're a buyer trying to negotiate a good deal with the seller, there's basically two buckets that things fall in. There's price, which includes other money concessions and the way you might structure a deal. And then there's also terms, which include things like timing, contingencies, and negotiating repairs. So let's dive in and talk about how you as the buyer can go about negotiating the best deal that you can with the seller. The first thing that you have to understand as a buyer, and I think this is the biggest thing that people miss, is that you have to have leverage. Without leverage, you cannot negotiate. So if there is one home on the market and 10 people want it, you have pretty limited leverage. You're not gonna be able to lowball the seller and be like, hey, I'll give you half the price you're asking for, because he's gonna say, hey, why would I do that? I've got 9 other buyers over here. So you have to understand the nature of the market, your other options, your opportunity costs, and the position that the seller's in. So leverage is a big deal. When you have leverage, you can negotiate things like price. So in a slower market where a home has been on the market for a while, you can have a higher likelihood of convincing a seller to take a lower offer. For example, if you walk into, I remember a couple months ago, there was a condo complex in Mission Valley that I was looking in for a buyer. There were 4 of the exact same units, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, 890 square feet, and they were all priced at $500,000, and they all sat on the market for 50 or 60 days. And so if I was a buyer in that situation, I have leverage. You've all been on the market, you're all asking the same price, so I'll just write 4 offers and see if any seller is willing to move. When you have leverage, that's where you can negotiate, a lower price. You might also be able to negotiate, maybe none of those sellers are willing to take a lower price, but maybe they are willing to concede on some terms or some other money concessions. They might give you a credit towards buying down your interest rate. They might cover some of your closing costs. They might offer to pay for, things that a buyer traditionally pays for, like an appraisal or a termite repair, or things of this nature. So beyond the money, there's also terms. So negotiating the timing. So if you're in a lease and your lease isn't up for 3 more months at your apartment, maybe you ask the seller for a longer escrow period or, something of that nature. Also contingencies. So the contingency is basically saying I'm willing to buy this house contingent upon, meaning I have to get an appraisal, an inspection, and make sure my loan is approved. The more contingencies you can keep in place, the more confident that you can be, and the lower risk to you that the appraisal is going to go bad, or the loan, or an inspection. So negotiating contingencies with the seller and allowing you to keep some contingencies in place enable you to pay more for a home, because you are understanding that you're going to have an opportunity to take a much lower risk by getting the loan approved, having an appraisal, things of that nature. Another piece of the puzzle with as far as terms are concerned is repairs. So you do an inspection and there are some things that pop up. And at that point, you're locked into contract with the seller, and you might say to the seller, hey, the roof is shot, I want a new roof, or the sewer line addressed, or in a property we're working on right now, the heater is broken, so they want some heater repairs. Terms are a big piece of the puzzle as well. So all of these things you are able to negotiate with the seller, and all of these things work on the whole to craft the best deal for you. So it's not always price, it might be terms, it might be some of these other things. So how do we do it? A, understanding leverage, understanding the situation. Is there 1 condo with 5 people competing in this complex, or is there 5 condos with 1 person shopping in this complex, right? That'll go a long way in determining just how much leverage you have to negotiate with a seller. Another piece of the puzzle is try to build rapport with the seller, or in my case, if I'm working with the listing agent, try to build rapport with the seller and their agent. When I walk a military couple through a house and we see military plaques on the wall, one of the things I'm going to tell to that listing agent is, hey, my clients are in the Navy too. Hey, I've got, Navy SEAL, yeah, we're Navy SEAL too. Oh, do we know each other? Because when you build rapport, it makes it a much more personal situation, and you'd be surprised how much money people are willing to leave on the table and how much of a deal you can get just by striking common ground, finding common interests, and things of that nature. So when you're shopping, when you're actually in the house, see if there are talking points in this person's life that can help you build rapport. Another thing, have a solid real estate agent that can build rapport with another agent, because any of my real estate friends know out there, any of you that's been a real estate agent before, you know that a big part of getting a transaction done smoothly and successfully is the other agent involved in the transaction. So if you're incompetent or kind of a jerk or unable to build rapport with the other side, it's easy for another agent to overlook you, especially in a competitive bidding situation. So you want to make sure that you have an agent that is skilled in building rapport and making the the agent know that you are a buyer of strength, that they are an agent of strength, and that by selecting our offer, that it will be smooth and successful for the seller. The last piece of the puzzle is this. It's to understand where the seller is coming from and what their position is, right? And then we have to be realistic with all these things. So we have to understand our leverage, we have to understand the seller's wants, needs, and desires and goals, and then we have to be realistic about what we can accomplish. Because you could have all the leverage in the world, like for example, 5 townhouses for sale that aren't moving in a complex that you want to buy in. That's leverage. And then you could talk to the sellers and understand like, oh, you know, I got a seller that really needs to move. But then you still have to be realistic, because I don't care how bad a seller needs to move. If their condo is listed at 500, they're probably not selling it to you for $200,000. They're probably not going to let you do a 6-month long escrow, right? So there's leverage, there's understanding the seller's needs, and then there's a realistic range of what we can accomplish and sticking to our negotiations inside a realistic range. And it's the realistic range of the low end, like how much can I get away with? But there's also the realistic range of the high end, where if these sellers aren't budging on anything and they want you to pay over list price, it's also a good idea to know when to walk away. So understand your leverage, understand the seller's position, where they're coming from, and then understand the reasonable range of what you can get away with in a negotiation, and do the best you can to get the best deal that works for you, given those 3 things. And when you do so, you can find yourself, you know, getting better prices, getting other money concessions, getting a nice financing structure with the help of the seller, or getting the timing, the contingency period, or the repairs that you need to create the best deal for you. That's how you negotiate with the seller. Hope that helps. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.